all these crazy energies, these powerful vibes. And how are you navigating them? How are you feeling in these rather challenging, poking and provoking opportunities for growth and expansion? You getting to know you the most intimately, the into me I see way only you can do for you. Welcome to my living room. My name is Lana. Welcome to my channel. There's so much truth in the saying, if you don't use it, you'll lose it. And how many of us tend to just let go and wonder why we no longer have something available to us? Perfect example is our physical bodies. If you don't move your body atrophies. If you don't strengthen your muscles, if you don't build up your breath and your endurance, strengthen your nervous system, strengthen your immune system, if you don't strengthen this amazing temple, this image of God, then eventually it will fail you, but only at the behest of you failing it first. This is the symbiotic relationship we have. Everything that starts in the mind manifests in the body. So if we get lazy in the mind, the body gets lazy, and then what happens? What happens when we don't take care of ourselves? Other than the fact that a lot of times we play the victim to our circumstances when the circumstances are a result of our own behavior, our own choices. See, we don't make mistakes. We just make choices. And each choice moves in the direction we want to be or go, or in the opposite direction. Like, this is the duality and the divine dance and comedy of life. That every choice you make is what creates your reality, is what creates your life. It is what brings out who you are, because everything you do, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. The way you do everything is the way you do anything. It's this whole, like, even when nobody's looking, eventually, even if you're trying to fake the funk while people are looking, your shit will show. Because if you aren't being authentic and true, it will show up and tell on you. Think about it. If you're telling a lie, and the lie originates within, so typically we tell ourselves the lie first, and then others show up to lie to us on the same level because it's an energy vibration and we attract where we're at. And to even say that someone has done something to us is essentially very ignorant to the fact that we were doing it to ourselves first. They couldn't show up to us unless we were showing up to ourselves in that way. That the lies that are told to us originate with us, by us. People are just mirroring where we're at. People are showing us. It's that mirror reflection. It's the how someone else is to you is really what you're doing to yourself. This is why life is about relationships, because how someone shows up to you is just showing you where you're at. And that all the communication that is bounced back and forth is a relay. That's why it's called relationship. It's a ship. We're all on a ship together. Interesting, because then that brings up all the maritime admiralty stuff if you go in that direction. I mean, I can take you down rabbit holes all over the place. But the truth of the matter is, anything outside of you is just a distraction from what's going on within. And anything you engage in that's outside of you makes you go without, takes you off your course, off your path, takes you out of your joy, your happiness, the whole purpose of you being here. And we've all been steered off course in a direction that wasn't necessarily the one we came here to circumvent, to navigate. But There's always hope. There's always hope. There's always this find our way back and getting back on the path, the middle way. Not this or that, because duality is the trap, but the middle way is the neutral way. It's not getting caught up in our emotions, because emotions, like the ocean, ebb and flow. Sorry. Buggies. Squirrel. We all came here incarnated with a purpose. And we forgot, because we forgot that at our youth, in our youngest years, that was when we were the purest and closest to source. That was when we were the most innocent and aware of our truth and our connection. We adults forget it and don't know how to nurture it in the youth, the children of today. Now, I'm very grateful that I still maintained that thread, that connection for me. And I can't speak for everyone else, but I know that because I had a mother that was very much about discussing what she foresaw, that she knew in her being, every fiber of her being, she remembered as well. I don't think she realized it. But as we become adults, we become indoctrinated, programmed, socially engineered, and conditioned. TV, media, advertising, broadcast spells upon us. What to think and how to speak and how to behave and how to dress and where we should want to focus our attention. Because where attention goes, energy flows, and that takes us outside of ourselves. And is there any wonder why maybe you wanted to follow a certain trajectory, because all of a sudden it was all this information overload that was from the outside, as opposed to following the true nature of your inside? Insight is in. If you just play with the words, the languaging is the casting of the spells. It is truly in the words that you speak, you're creating the reality, the real, it, you and me, that our energy actually creates the manifestation and the experiences that we have. So as we're young and we have this insight and this strength of inner fortitude, like a lot of us who fought, against authority because it didn't make sense, it didn't resonate, and we weren't revered for our individual knowing and honored for our uniqueness. You and me are individuals, but we are part of the whole, and we all have a role. So the fact that as children we're not nurtured into our nature, that if anything we're denatured and disempowered from the moment we're born, told we're born of original sin, and therefore you need to be molded in this other man-made ideology. That in itself is a huge red flag if you think about it. If it's said that we are made in the image of God, what makes us so easy to idolize and false worship the image of man? If you just sit with that, it's like, oh. And I'm not talking scripture God. I'm not talking about religion, because I think that they all have merit, but I think there's a lot of lies in the truth and a lot of truth in the lies, and that you have to navigate what resonates and feel within the truth for you. I can't tell you. You have to feel it for you, because each of us is figuring out what it is that works for us. Whether it's how you eat, the job that you choose to take, the families you choose to create, the people you align with, all has to be something you feel within you. It takes an inner strength in knowing who you are first, to feel strong and convicted in who and what you do, you become. And so why do we falsely idolize man anything before recognizing the God within? See the other as you, but also recognize God is in all. And that starts with you. But we're so much outside of ourselves that we're numbed out from the inside out. That the true eclipsing illumination that is occurring on the planet right now, this awakening, as many call it, this is a remembering. And as I've spoken about before, that when we come together with another person, that is God, Source, reconnecting with itself. And the bigger the groups we are, the more of us that come together, the more of God, Source energy is concentrated, is remembered, members brought back together. And that when we can intention whatever our purpose is that we come together, we're that much more powerful because we have that God source concentrated among us, not just singularly. That's why we say humans in unity is what makes humanity. And without one another, we're lost. And we are meant to be in union with one another. We're not meant to be isolated or individualized or singularly trying to traverse this life alone. We're not supposed to be hanging out in caves trying to hide out and, oh, I'm going to go get enlightened. You still have to apply that knowledge and wisdom and integrate it. Actually, you have to integrate information into your beingness and doingness to really effectively become wise. You don't just become wise, as many of us have figured out as we've gotten older. Oh, wow, I made some mistakes when I was younger. I know myself. I own my stuff. I'm good with that. The more you can own your stuff, the good and the bad, all of it, the less anybody or anything, let alone that thing, is going to rule over you or own you. But again, as I've titled this, it's time to strengthen our resilience. And just like muscles, everything needs to be exercised and practiced and maintained. If you want a strong foundation, you have to build the strength within you. You have to strengthen your resilience, which means in the face of fear, you are willing to show up despite the fear, the scariness, I sound familiar. That's building the reserve of your courage. That's resilience. That every time you show up in what may appear to others as, oh, well, that person it comes easy to. No, each and every one of us has to make a choice to get to that step, and it has to be repeatedly exercised for the strength of that foundation, that resilience, that no matter what appears on the outside is still sometimes like, oh, my stomach is doing flip-flops, and you don't know what it took to get me out of bed this morning. You don't know what it took for me to get out the door. Never assume that what appears to be easy for another is easier than you think because of your projection upon them. It's only because people make these judgments and project upon others based on comparing themselves. So if they themselves are talking themselves out of doing something that someone else is doing, it's only because they themselves do not have the resolve and the resilience and the courage to try it out for themselves. The majority of negative Nancys and people who speak ill of others are the same people who will not do it for themselves. And that doesn't make it better. It's a victimhood lack mentality. When you project onto another that, oh, that's easy for them, you really don't know. You're only looking within yourself as to how you don't feel you could achieve that. Why not just try it? Put yourself out there. Because anytime we place a finger out on another, we got three back at us. So it's our obligation in life to show up. No matter how messy life is, it isn't going to change anything just because you made a judgment, just because you assumed, making an ass out of you and me, that anything about another person. All that is projection. And all that is comparing yourself. Because most people don't realize they're living their lives very numbed out of habitual routine. And to see anything outside of their routine threatens that routine, threatens the ego. Because the ego likes to be right and likes to exercise control. It's all about being in the head versus dropping into the heart and knowing what's right for you and feeling into, okay, yes, I feel the fear, but I'm going to face it anyway. The only way to get over the hump is to keep practicing, to keep exercising, to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Otherwise, you get held back, and that's withholding of yourself and your gifts that you're here to serve this planet, this world, humanity with. And what you withhold becomes your poison. Because the more you hold on to something that's meant to be freely given, even if it's out of fear, is what manifests as dis-ease, becomes your poison. And if you consider we are all each other's medicine, and that every time we reunite with another person, we are sparking the internal flame, unlocking ciphers and codes within ourselves and individually with one another, that causes that remembering who you are. Just like when you see someone and you think, oh, I really wish I was like that. They're reminding you what exists in you already, because if you didn't recognize it, then it didn't already exist. It exists because you recognized it, because again, the mind only sees what it knows. Even if you think you don't know it, you do. It's a remembering. They're sparking within you, if you're admiring them, or even if you're hating them. It's a memory, remembering. Most people won't see it this way. It's a remembering what exists within you, whether it's a suppressed aspect of yourself or it's actually something you just didn't even know existed. It's always there. And then you see it around you, because what is within you is always mirrored outside of you. And if it still triggers you and it upsets you, that's your work to do. Everything that's showing up to you in this beautiful, amazing divine comedy of a life is there to challenge you, to wake you up, to remember who you are. Not to dismiss it, not to argue with it, not to create your own suffering, your stress, your strife. See, that's the funny thing about life. Now, and I was teaching my class yesterday, I said, we've got this full moon eclipse, right? And this happens about 2 a.m. this evening, early tomorrow morning here on the East Coast. How many of you out there will throw a temper tantrum, resisting, fighting, you feel something is coming and you just don't want to do it? Or it's something you know you have to do and you just keep fighting it, and it's only because you don't want to do it. Because maybe somebody's trying to tell you should do it, and there's the ego, I don't like to be told what to do. Or maybe it's just, I don't like the obligation of having to do it, as opposed to seeing that it's a gift that you could even be capable of giving to another. See, these are all ego things. This is when you're too caught up and strong in your gotta be right mind, as opposed to recognizing there's an opportunity to open the heart and be happy. To see another person happy should make you happy too. But when you withhold, and there's another example of that, when you withhold giving to another just out of your ego mind, that causes more suffering on you and your heart. How many of us resist kicking and fighting, throwing a tantrum, only to find that what ends up unfolding is this delightful surprise, this like served up on a silver platter, and then we're like, oh my gosh, here I was pitching a fit, and there it was for me. Happens all the time. I know I've experienced in my life. Let me know, have you experienced this in your life where you just go in fighting and screaming and kicking and punching and all that, only to realize, ooh, that's embarrassing. It was there for me all along. It was about me just softening in and receiving instead of perceiving with my past experiences and my limited dogmatic belief system that my mind just wants to think it knows it's in control and it has an idea of what's unfolding, when in reality the mind is just basing off the past. The past is not determinant of the future unless you are so fixated and attached to it, you just keep recreating it. And the only reason you're recreating it is because it's comfortable, it's habitual, it's routine, it's part of your, you're allowing it, because when you keep telling the same story, you're reliving it every time you tell it. Whether it's an empowerment or a disempowerment, it's you choosing each time. So you can kick and scream and punch and resist everything that's coming at you. But why not consider leaning in and softening into the ebb and flow of life? That maybe there's something you don't know, and that what is actually showing up is there for you, to empower you. The more you're willing to allow life to just be, instead of attaching a meaning to it and assuming the worst of it, the more you will be surprised and delighted. And I know for me in my life, it was real easy to see the negative in things, because the negative was what I knew. And that in itself was a habit and a routine, was allowing myself to believe that everything was happening to me as opposed to for me. And it really took a lot of practice. It took a lot of exercising for me of my own mind to drop into my heart, to really challenge my own beliefs around what are the possibilities here? That it's the worst case scenario that I can imagine, or that maybe it's actually something I can't imagine and it's really a gift showing up, and maybe I should just be a little bit curious like a child. The more you're willing to be like a curious child, the more it will show up to you to serve you. Because life, the universe, likes to play, likes to see you joyful in this happiness bubble. It will give you more of what it sees you express. This is why it's so important. Where attention goes, energy flows. This is why it's so important to be in the so-called vortex, to be in that happy space, and to literally feel it in every fiber of your being. Because the universe is witnessing you in a space, and it says, look at her, she's so excited. Let's give her more of that, because she's embodying it. But when she's also in that negative space of bitching, moaning, and groaning about something, the universe is like, look at her, she's really enjoying that space. Let's give her some more of that. Did you ever consider that? Sit with that. Think of the times when you woke up in the morning and it took one thing to set you off, and the rest of the course of your day unfolded along with that same theme of, oh, great, my day started out and that's all it kept on being, was this, the domino effect, and it just kept on falling and falling. Only because the universe was giving you exactly what you were embodying. Now, change that up. Okay, something happened in the morning and it didn't feel good, and you were like, oh man, is this the way the rest of my day is going to be? How about looking in the mirror and going, I'm not going to let that change how I want to feel. That was just a blip on my radar. That was a reminder to get in the vortex, to get in that happy space, to be in gratitude for what I know. I am in love with life. Life is always taking care of me. The universe loves me. The universe has my back. God always shows up to support me and uplift me. Spirit is within me. Because when you do that, the more you choose you as opposed to whatever's going on externally, the more life will show up to serve you in the way that you choose and desire it to be. But if you're kicking and screaming, resisting, the universe is going to give you more of that. Because all it sees is, oh, she must like that. Let's give her more of that. Because that's how the universe responds with energy. Whatever you're embodying, whatever you're choosing, you're going to be given more of that. If you truly believe you are abundant and that everything that you choose is going to go your way, that everything unfolds in your favor, that you will get more of that. But I mean really embodying it, and not in this back of the unconscious that's also, as we say, demoting, because you have promoting and demoting habits and mindsets and belief systems. If you in the back of your mind are already thinking, I know I really want this, and you can get into the state and all that, but in the back it's going, yeah, but remember the last time you did this, it just didn't work out, and blah, 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 blah. You need to find ways to work with that and play with it, and to not allow it to steal your joy, to take you out of the vortex. So just be in awareness whenever you get into those negative spaces of kicking and screaming, resisting, like you can sense. And I know a lot of people out there, you get in these anxious states of something's happening and I just can't put my finger on it, but you immediately switch on the something bad's about to happen because it's not familiar. When in reality, you don't know, but the mind wants to think it knows. So it goes into protective mode. And when you're in protective mode, you set up the defense mechanism that attracts the attack. An attack can't happen unless it has something to focus on. So the more we are choosing to feel gratitude, expansion, abundance mindset, the more you're going to attract something like that. But if you're looking to defend yourself, if you're seeking to, I gotta hide, because I went through this years ago when I lived in Naples, Italy. When I lived in Naples, Italy, I was going to the office and feeling like I was under the radar, and I just wanted to do my job and just go home because it was such a toxic work environment. And what did I do? I know this now. Back then, I didn't see how I was doing it, but I recognized not long after, as I was doing my healing work, that, oh my gosh, I was attracting that. It didn't make it right, but I was actually attracting the attacks that I was getting because it was such a toxic, nasty workspace that I just wanted to get my job done and go home. And I know I'm not the only one who's ever done that, but you can fall into the victimhood scenario. You can tell the story about how, this was done to me, but the truth of the matter is, why do we even go in these environments? Why do we expose ourselves to toxic, unhealthy workspaces? That was another thing that I spoke with my dad, for example. Oh, this life, I just want to be left alone. How many of you out there are in that space too, where you just like, listen, I just want to live my life. I don't want to be told what to do. I don't want people to come at me and attack me. You know the don'ts, right? You're more in that space of, I don't want this. It's like, wait a minute here. Why are you fixated on the don't wants? Why do you even place yourself in those spaces that cause you to be attacked, that are not healthy? Why do we do that? Out of habit, out of routine, because we think we're connected in some way, shape, or form. Why are we trying to hold on to attachments and relationships and groups of people that don't even align with our heart and soul? Because all you're doing there is placing yourself in toxic environments that aren't even aligned with who you are. It's only the familiar, habitual aspect that you're even placing yourself there. So you have to really evaluate. This is what this full moon and this eclipse is about. If you're still in environments that are not really conducive, see, when I'm talking about strength and resilience, I'm not talking about pushing through something that doesn't align. I'm talking about having the strength and the resilience and the courage to turn around and walk away from something that doesn't work for you. If you don't use your voice, if you do not speak from your heart, if you don't feel into what's right for you, You will be bulldozed over and taken over. You will become enslaved to a life that you didn't come here to live and be part of the cookie cutter, crumbling down establishment, the system that only wants you to behave the way it wants you to. And again, that's not your unique you. That is not what you came here to do. Each one of us as children had this bewilderment, this wonder, this awareness of our true nature. But unfortunately, this man-made environment does not nurture that nature. There are the few exceptions. There are those of us who had parents that were able to nurture us to a certain degree. But even then, not all of them had the tools for themselves, let alone us. So this has been an unfolding, an unveiling, a lifting of a curse of humanity to reveal the truth, to remember who we were incarnated to be, and stop playing into the idolization of man this or man that, man made. Man has created a system that is overshadowed and overcast God's creation that was made in God's image. And we have forgotten this. At what point did we decide the man had all the answers for the general populace at any point? None of that makes sense to me. And I don't think I'm the only one. I was having a conversation earlier today. I said, we all have these little questions in the back of our mind. I know I'm not the only one. Where we go, well, wait a minute here. At what point did someone decide, I own this little piece of land, or this huge piece of land, I'm going to sell it to people. I'm going to conquer these lands so that I can rule over people. That's not God, people. That is not God. That is the greed of man. And that's actually the devil in disguise, playing through man. So at what point did we stop recognizing that the earth is all of ours? Nobody owns it. We own nothing technically. But we are all amassing. We're hoarding. We hoard information. We hoard fashion, clothes, technology, houses, property, money, this and that. Now, don't get me wrong. It does help make life a lot more comfortable. But at what point did we lose sight of the fact that we here were meant to take care of our fellow brothers and sisters, one another, humans in unity? That's what humanity was always about. That there was a time when there were tribes and groups where we all came together and supported one another. We actually had families that were group tribes taking care of each other's children. And now we're in a situation where some people don't even know their neighbors. They are afraid to know who lives next door to them. They create more struggle and strife because they don't get to know the people who are living in their circle or their environment. We're more disconnected than we've ever been. And so funny how we could be so connected on a technological level. Have you ever considered some of these questions? Am I the only one who sits here and has these ponderings of, yeah, at what point did we start deciding that, oh, I'm going to start selling land back to people, or I'm going to sell water? Oh, that was a good one, right? Talk about a joke on humanity. I'm going to sell water to you because water should be a free resource abundant to us. Just like electricity, just like having a home and a roof over your head. The simple, basic human needs should not be withheld from anyone. And to struggle month to month to be able to pay for those, there was a time when we had free energy and those technologies were hidden. Let's have a story time. Let's talk about the lost civilizations. Let's talk about the orphans. Let's talk about Tartaria. That's a whole nother conversation. I can go down that rabbit hole, and that's pretty fascinating stuff to me. Stuff that I wasn't aware of, but I kind of sensed it. That if you look through old history books or some of the old movies, they've had electric cars for years, people. In the early 1900s, there were hundreds of cars made, and they went much further than the Tesla. So why is it withheld? You ever think if you don't have access to it, it's withheld from you? You're easier to control. Once again, if I can keep you in a space of having to worry about getting your basic needs met, then you're not going to pay attention to the real bigger problem, the elephant in the room. The only way we're really truly going to grow and evolve is if we start coming together more and more. But first you have to know what it is within you. You have to know your truth. You need to work on healing you, because when you heal you, you help the collective. The more you're caught up in the mass indoctrinated, social engineering, brainwashing game that's been going on, I have totally tried to disengage myself. I don't even want to have those conversations. You know why? It doesn't exist in my reality. It does not exist in my life. Don't give me a but this, but that. I'm sorry. My life is here to inspire you to recognize you have everything you need within you. And if you have chosen to falsely idolize any man to tell you, to guide you, to lead you, because you forgot you have that inner spark within you, that means you don't know how to trust yourself, first off. I trust me. And that makes me stronger and more resilient to be able to discern who I can trust around me. Because when I know myself as deeply as I do, I can trust or choose not to trust you or anybody else. Because my truth is what I see around me. So I am not exposed to things that take me down, that don't. I personally feel very supported. I'm very grateful for the community that I have around me and the people that I surround myself with, because we all inspire one another. We all uplift one another. We empower and support each other. And that's what it's about. We're not here to disempower anybody. And if that is what you're doing or is being done to you, that's toxic. It's unhealthy. And gaslighting is when you're trying to make someone feel crazy and you're picking at them and you're picking at their character and you're accusing them of stuff. And all that is a reflection of whatever's going on within you. If you are triggered by someone else, again, I'm going to bring it back to that is your work to do. Whatever's showing up to you is showing you where you need to heal. And that needs to be healed within. You can't fix the externals until you're really willing to address the internals. Because the outside wound is something that festers from the inside out. If we have dis-ease in the mind, we will manifest it in our body and in our environments. And until we address the root cause of everything, which originates in our own mind, our ways of thinking, our belief systems, challenging that, it takes strength and resilience to recognize you have to be flexible, fluid, like, okay, I have to adjust that belief system because it's no longer serving me. It served me up to a certain point, and now it's time to course correct. Belief systems are there to serve you, but there are times when they change because you realize the information that you have is different. It has changed in itself. You have to challenge your own resistance. That's really the key here. So in the mind, what we resist will persist because life is always going to show up to challenge us. That's what builds the resilience within us. So whatever we're resisting is what we need to confront? Why are we resisting it? What are you kicking and fighting and screaming and punching all about? What in your life are you so angry about that you just keep on going back for more? Why do you keep placing yourself in environments around toxic people, on social media, looking for arguments? Check yourself. Because if you're placing yourself in those environments and experiencing that stuff, but then at the same time, you're bemoaning and groaning and saying how you don't want that and what they're doing it to me, wah, wah, wah. I'm sorry, but that's actually you choosing to be in that space and allowing it. It takes a lot of humbling to recognize that every choice you're making is what is creating your experience. If you truly don't want to be treated a certain way, stop placing yourself in situations, in environments, and in all these spaces. It's time to choose more wisely and to discern and to learn where you're creating it. Because again, your superpower is your choice. And how you're feeling is all about what is going on a deeper level that you need to confront and heal within. Because again, the truth is within you. And in order to feel, and in order to heal, you have to feel it. Because any dis-ease, any discomfort is really a reflection of what's going on up here that doesn't align with the heart. Say that again. What is painful in the body, because it is this kinesiology, the balance, the truth this is the truth barometer. This is how you can tell your truth. Anytime something is in your mind, check your body. What are your thoughts right now? What is it that you feel in your body? Whatever you feel in your body, where do you feel it? What is that sensation? Keep a journal. Pay attention to that. Because whatever you're feeling in the body is being reflected from the mind. So check your thoughts. What am I thinking about right now? Am I self-deprecating? This is why meditation is so important. To be in awareness of what program is running the show in your life, what is creating your reality. Hips, great example. You store a lot of emotion in your hips. And it originates up in the jaw because it travels down the spine and goes into the hips. That's a long way to travel. But and it goes from top down and the bottom up. It can go from any direction. But remembering that the hips are where we store a lot of emotion and when we're not moving our body because you need to be in mobility. Movement keeps the energy moving. Any stiff areas, any tightness, you got to move it or you lose it. And this is why it's so important to keep that body in motion, just like the ocean. Let it ebb, let it flow, let it dance, let it move. We're not here to be stiff robots, people. And if you're sitting in a chair every single day and you're not getting up and moving about, then you are probably atrophying muscles, causing tightness, stiffness, inflammation. It all gets stagnant and stuck. And when we have emotions, they get stored in the body, especially if you don't allow yourself to feel them fully, because life is about feeling everything to the maximum through the whole life cycle of that emotion. Anytime you stop an emotion, you actually cause it to get lodged in your body. So, just example, when you were a little girl or a little boy and you started crying and you had a parent that said, stop crying. Let the child cry. Let them get it out. Because that needs to be brought to fruition, completion, and then have that conversation of like, do you feel better now? There have been a lot of us who weren't allowed to feel and to express ourselves in the moment when something was arising. And so as adults, what do? We stuff it down even more, and it becomes that coping mechanism that I wasn't taught or I wasn't honored to feel what was coming up. So you just went through life stuffing it down. And that's how it gets lodged in the body. Why we end up having all this tightness, this stiffness, this soreness, this resistance to feeling. is because we were never given permission in the first place. But since when does anybody give you permission to be? See, this is where it goes back to. Back to man-made ideologies, beliefs. When you have dealt with a lot of adversity in your life, that will build resilience, and that will also challenge you to recognize, does this align with me? Am I going to fight it? Am I going to fight and run? Or am I going to dance and move with this adversity? I'm going to work with this. It's an energy. It's a fluid energy. Energy is meant to stay in motion. We're not supposed to get stuck on anything. We're supposed to kind of like be like, oh, okay. And then just notice as you're feeling it, how it moves in and out and about. So there's a certain point when that energy moves out of your body. But if you're never allowed or don't give yourself permission to feel something fully, it will just hang out. It'll hang out with you for as long as you allow it, until you let go of it. We're not meant to hold on to anything. Nothing belongs to us. But again, we humans, we hoard all sorts of stuff. Yes, Tai Chi is a beautiful example. So fluid motion, the dance, the movement, sensations, breathing with the spirit, inspiration. We inhale the breath, that is the breath of God. We exhale, we let out. Breath is your life force. Breath is you taking in God. That's how much God loves you. God is not in man in the sense that man can't give you permission to breathe. Man does not make your body operate. That is happening. You don't need permission from anybody else. What you do need is to give yourself permission to honor your cycles, your flows, your energy, your movement, your whatever emotion, whatever is coming up in you. That's for you. Nobody else. Your truth is within you. Don't let anybody, and let man not even try. Don't listen to me. You got to try it for you. I'm not here to tell you. I'm here to just be a lighthouse, a guide, an inspiration. I can channel what comes in for me, but you need to figure it out for you. The truth is, we all are channels, and we are constantly channeling, receiving information from the divine source, God. The question is whether you're listening and you're allowing and actually receiving. Or are you resisting and fighting? And then it creates more problems. Yes, full moon, eclipse energy, about 2 a.m. on the East Coast. This is some powerful stuff. And this is the truth, that this age of Aquarius, this is another truth that a lot of people aren't talking about. It's not all airy-fairy. The age of Aquarius wasn't all about, oh, the age of Aquarius, and we're running around all naked, and we're cutesy and airy-fairy, just running around Luffy. And I'm sorry. The age of Aquarius is really like, own your shit and your shadow. Embrace that shit. Embrace that shadow. It's embracing, not bypassing. Because there's a lot of bypassing in spiritual environments and spiritual communities. And all bypassing is when you're uncomfortable with other people who are comfortable with what they're feeling. Check that. Check it in yourself and check it in others. If somebody turns around and says, hey, how are you feeling? And you honor them and they honor you and you say, I'm not feeling so great, but I'm good with that. Thank you for asking. As long as they don't come around and say, oh yeah, this too shall pass, or, oh, I'm so sorry about that. You know, like they're just projecting their discomfort with your feeling. And notice that that happens a lot. Now, I'm not saying go in and get into an altercation and an argument about it, but just be in awareness, because it takes compassion to recognize other people's discomfort with your discomfort. And that happens so regularly. It happens all the time. And it takes an awareness of where you're at to not bypass another as well. So somebody turns around and tells you, you know, I'm really pissed off. And if it makes you feel uncomfortable, you can own that too. That might actually open up another beautiful conversation where you say, you know, wow, I just noticed in my body that you even saying that has brought something in me. It triggered me. That must mean there's something in me that feels uncomfortable. Thank you for bringing up what you're going through, because clearly that triggered something in me, because they're actually acting as a catalyst for you. That's what most people who bypass don't recognize. It takes a very consciously aware, intuitive person to notice, oh, wow, I feel uncomfortable with your discomfort. I'm going to go sit with that. Or maybe you even have a dialogue around it. That could even open up a more beautiful awareness around, wow, yeah, where do you feel it? Well, I feel it right here. Where do you feel it? Oh, I feel it really deep in my belly, and it just feels heated. Wow, tell me more. Like, are there any memories that come up for you? And oh my gosh, it brings me up this time with my uncle and my sister and blah, 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 blah. Whatever comes up could unfold into a beautiful healing and clearing for both of you, one of you, you never know. But you have to be willing, this is the strength and resilience part, to have uncomfortable conversations, because uncomfortable conversations lead to your comfort. So where you feel discomfort is your work to do, but in order to get to the comfort, you have to be willing to sit in the discomfort. You have to be willing to sit in your mud, get all messy, because the lotus blooms from the mud. And that's a gift. That's a beautiful gift. So yeah, you can avoid places, as I just said earlier. You can say, I don't want to be treated a certain way. You avoid the places that are toxic because you were choosing to go there because they were familiar, and you were afraid to, well, these are people I've always known. It's a loyalty factor. Or like I said earlier today, I follow this YouTube channel called Nomad Capitalist, and I love the tagline they use, because he says, go where you're treated best. Why would you turn around and stay anywhere that doesn't treat you well? Think about that. Really sit with that. Like, how many of us have been hanging out in the most unhealthy circumstances only because it's people we know, and we're afraid to like venture into environments that are new and refreshing? Because even, for example, the country you're born into, you're conditioned to believe you must stay loyal to that country. You're conditioned to stay loyal to your family. You're conditioned to stay loyal to a sports team, to a college, to a nationality, to a race, to this, to that. I see the raise his hand, by the way. Ask away any questions you have, but I want you to really recognize, where have you been playing the loyalty game and it hasn't been serving you? You're giving in, but you're not getting back. And how many of us are in environments where we're trying to fight a system that doesn't serve us? Why are we fighting against something which is feeding it too, when we could go somewhere else where we're treated better? Go where you're treated best. Get away from the loyalty. That was a game, and that's part of the indoctrination. Indoctrination. Nationalities, races, genders, all these divisive tactics to keep you constantly scrambling to fight for yourself. How about we stop fighting against things and just stepping into what resonates and what aligns with who we are, as opposed to this whole, I have to fight for my rights, I have to fight for this. I'm sorry, I'm done fighting. I just don't go where the fight is. I go where it's ease and grace, and I'm going to build my strength and my resilience in the direction of what my purpose here to do and be is. Because I don't want to put in energy and effort that doesn't actually align with my heart and soul. I'm going to go where I'm treated best. I'm going to treat the others the best I know how to treat them. I'm going to do unto others as I would want done unto me. If I'm fighting against you, that's not serving you or me. Why are we even fighting? That's always the question we need to bring it back to. Am I trying to prove myself to you? Are you trying to enforce something on me? Are we trying to make the other think the way we think? Like, Fights are usually about an assertion of control. Fights are all about proving to be right, not being happy. Fights always begin in the mind. The heart's over here going, hey, I see you going on and on about this craziness. If we could just sink down into the heart, we can find a happiness medium. Not a compromise. Not a fight, not a this or that, because duality's the trap. But a recognizing that that's not worth my energy. It's not worth my time. And all it's doing is harvesting and feeding off of my energy. Why would I do that to myself? That's actually inflicting self-harm. When I go into spaces and places that cause me to feel uncomfortable, that cause me to have to assert myself or to prove myself worthy or to fight for my right to even be there. Why am I going to fight for my right to be someplace? If I'm not welcomed with open arms, I'm not going to go there. I'm going to go where I'm treated best. And I am invited and embraced with open arms and a hug, because that's how I invite. That's what life is about. Going where you're treated best and treating everyone the best from the space that you are. Do unto others as you want done unto you. Recognize the other as you and recognize the God in all. Because you are of God's source. You were created in His perfect image. And every single one of us was made in God's image. I am not going to fight with you and try to prove myself to you, and nor do you have to do the same to me. I want you to be honest. If you don't like me, I'm okay with that. That's empowering. And that in itself I respect more than the person that fakes the funk and shows up to me with a smile and stabs me in the back. I don't have time for that. And if they're feeding me their energy, I will transmute that shit real quick. Because honestly, I don't have time or energy for it. I am here living my life the best way I know how, because that was what this was all about. And if we don't resonate, it's okay. I can honor you, and you can do you, and I can do me. I don't have to prove myself to you, and you don't have to prove yourself to me. I honor the person that shows up and doesn't try to fake the funk, and certainly, especially doesn't like to beat around the bush. It's okay to say, you know what, I don't resonate with you. Say it kindly, though. That you can always use words of kindness. You don't have to use other things as excuses like, I don't like this that you did, or you gaslight, or you throw excuses as to why you reject the other person. Just recognize that, oh, you know what? I don't resonate with you. It's okay. It's okay. I honor you as a person, but I don't resonate with you, and you're not my cup of tea. Yeah? I know, right? And see, do you know you saved yourself and that person years of animosity and frustration? When you don't fake the funk and you're straight and direct with the person, and a lot of people don't like that stuff, they'll act like you're harsh. They'll tell you how you're mean, you're a bad person. Actually, no. That is the most authentic person I could ever say exists and should speak their mind. Because the people who fake the funk are the most inauthentic and misaligned. Those are the harmful people. Those are the people who will talk behind your back. They're all about the drama and the trauma, and they are creating it for themselves and everyone in their circle. Sorry, you don't belong in my circle if you're creating all that. And I would highly recommend each and every one of you just check on yourself. Like, if we recognize that in another person, we also have to recognize it in ourselves. That's humbling. So maybe you're faking the funk. Maybe you're hanging out with somebody you don't like. Maybe you need to walk away. Maybe you don't even have to say it anytime. Sometimes you just don't get along with somebody, and it's okay. It really is. Someone treats you poorly, why are you going to keep exposing yourself to that? That is self-abuse. And excuses are self-abuses. So stop making excuses for them and stop making excuses for yourself. The loyalty factor is actually a killer, because the more you think you have to be loyal to people, you're being disloyal to yourself. Trust yourself. Tap into what you feel in your heart. Don't be trying to make excuses up in your head because you're abusing your heart. The most loving thing you could ever do for anybody, and especially for yourself, is to be true to you. And that's what this is all about. And this full moon, if you haven't had some rumblings of what isn't working, it's gonna kick your ass. Flat out. Why are you gonna stick around in all these crazy circles when it's not serving you and you're not in your happy place? This is a real reality check. This is a real wake-up call. The mind prefers to be safe, and it tends to keep you in the most unhealthy circumstances. Why? Because the mind wants to be right, think it's in control, and it doesn't like unfamiliar. Unfamiliar is not an indicator of bad. It just means you've never been there before. But when the mind gets a hold of something unfamiliar and you feel it like, oh my God, I feel like something's coming, be curious like a child and lean into that. Because if you go in kicking and screaming, you may be embarrassed on the other end when you're served up this beautiful gift. And I learned this lesson over the years that whenever something big was happening in my life, and this is still true to this day, I recognize, ooh, my body's feeling something's coming. Ooh, I'm dropping a glass. I break glass. I spill water. Things explode around me. Things go up in flames. I have a whole lot of signs that indicate, ooh, something big is rumbling in. And for me, because I'm aware of my mind and how it will start to get a little bit like agitated or anxious or like, ooh, something. These days, instead of getting like that, I actually get excited. I'm like, ooh, something juicy's coming. I wonder what it is. Woohoo! And I thank the universe and I do my little happy dance. Like, I know something big is happening. I'll tell you what, the new moon that happened 2 weeks ago was a huge weight off of my shoulders. I'm sharing my experience so that I can inspire you through this. I literally, within days, had something revealed to me that just, it unshackled me. It took a weight off of my shoulders. I felt liberated. Because by that exposing of that situation, I was gifted, in a harsh way, without the bow, but I was gifted the ability to recognize if someone wasn't meant in my circle, it was okay. And actually gave me permission to do what I just exposed to you and what I shared. That if you do not resonate with another person, you don't have to fake the funk. And you don't have to make excuses. You can just as easily walk away. If you need to say something, but do it with kindness. You don't have to be harsh. I was given permission by the way it was done to me to not be harsh. Because by having it done harsh, I recognized I would not want that done to another. But it liberated me. It freed me. And within a day, literally less than 24 hours, I was gifted something I'm not going to share here right now, but something unfolded like I had had a curse lifted off of me in a way that just made me go, oh my gosh, thank you, universe. I knew you had my back. I knew you had me. I literally woke up and had this gift presented to me that I was like, finally, foundation, strength, resilience. All that I'd been working to up to this point in my life was reminded. I was handed that, here's your affirmation. Everything you're doing is right on point, right on target. Don't you stop. You keep on going. That was the message I got. You be you. Don't apologize. Just be true. You be you so much that nobody around you can take you off your path. That the truth is within you and only you know you. When you start seeking answers outside of yourself, you have disempowered yourself. You have given it away. And with the world being as it is right now, upside down, inside out, if anything, that should be giving you a clear indicator of what you know to be true within you. So if you look outside of yourself and you are caught off guard, you are triggered by it, remember that's your work to do. Write it down. Write down, wow, this is pissing me off. I don't like this. And write down what that is. And sit with that. And write down as much as you can as to why. Where you remember the first time you experienced that. What were you exposed to? When did it happen in your life? Because anything that pops up in your life is being presented to you to re-examine it and to go back to the root cause. Because what persists is something you have never fully faced from your past. And in order to continue living your life authentically in alignment and integrity, and let go of the old stories of the past, you have to be willing to heal all of that. Otherwise, you're going to relive it every time. We only relive where we're at. And if you're living in the past, you're continuing to perpetuate the past. It's time to rewrite our stories, people. And this is such a huge, powerful, illuminating lunar eclipse, full moon. This is the time when you get to choose. What is the life you want to really experience? What is it that you desire? Because if you didn't desire it, it wouldn't already be. It's just you haven't manifested it. What do you prioritize? What matters most to you? Because the more you're giving it that attention, that energy, is how you manifest matter into form. Pay attention to the words you choose. You're casting your spell. You're writing your life. You're creating your reality. And what you anticipate, you create. Lean into more of what you want. And take yourself out of those toxic environments that are weighing you down. Liberate yourself. Get free. Move your body. That's what I'm doing. Stay tuned, because I am reigniting the flame within myself. I am going through a revival, a renewal, a rebirth of myself. And I'm going to share that with you. Anybody who knows me from my past knows how active I have always been. I used to teach kickboxing and aerobics and step, and I was a spinning person, and I used to Pilates and yoga, and you name it, I was doing it. Fitness instruction, all of it. I was a big time long distance runner. I ran 2 marathons. I ran the Paris Marathon and the Florence Marathon. Those are my 2 favorite cities in Europe. I should have done Greece because that's another favorite. Now Lisbon too, but these are things that for me on my bucket list, I checked off. Now I'm bringing it back, and I'm going to remake my body. I will be having my breast implants removed. Stay tuned for that one. And I'm just going to get back into the shape that I know I allowed myself to kind of wean off of. Because for myself, I want you to know, I know me. Sometimes I back off to give myself a challenge to bounce back too. And that's what I know I've been doing. And 2 years ago, I had my appendix removed. So it's kind of forced to take it down a notch. And now I'm time to come back even stronger than ever. And that should be your aspiration for you, to come back as the stronger version of you. Remember what it was when you were a child that was so exciting. When you woke up in the morning as a child, what did you look forward to doing? What was it that was the passion within you? Because that's what we return to. The childlike passion that we had is what we return to as an adult. Now it's time to remember that for you. So focus on you. Focus on what ignites you, what lights you up, what fires and fuels you, and do more of that, because that's what we're here to do. I'm sending you so much love, so many blessings. I'm excited for this full moon eclipse, total eclipse of the heart. Open that heart. That's what this is about. Stop hurting yourself with those harmful environments. I love you. I know what you're capable of. Go out into the world and show them what you're all about. Lots of love.